What's up, everybody? This is Jose from Southern Life. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm sure you guys are wondering if the Snowbirds have returned to Florida. And if you've been out in traffic lately, you know the answer to that is yes. Traffic congestion is now one of the biggest topics in Florida. That means that the Snowbirds are back in full effect. However, there's a few things that are concerning about this snowbird season. So on today's video, we're going to be looking at a lot of different topics. I'm going to be sharing with you guys some rideshare experiences that highlight how weird of a place Florida really is, but that also give us some insight onto what people who are coming to Florida now are thinking. As you guys know, one of the things that I do is rideshare, and I don't do it so much for the money, but as for picking the brains of people who are vacationing in Florida. Like, for example, today I spent the time purposely trying to pick up people at touristy destinations to see who's coming to Florida and how they feel about their travels to Florida. Now, when I first started doing rideshare a few years ago, people were excited to be in Florida. They were happy to be in Florida. They were happy to get out of the cold weather. But as of right now, the experiences and the feedback that I'm getting from people visiting our area are not that thrilling. Despite the fact that roads are busy and people are back, a lot of individuals are having bad feedback about their Florida experience. On today's video, we're going to look at different things. We're going to look at some rideshare. We're going to go to different cities and see how they're doing, and some cities are doing better than others. In the case of Sarasota, things are looking pretty busy right now. In the case of other places like Clearwater, things are definitely not looking that good. So I'm going to give you guys a real good summary of what's going in Florida and also some of the things that I've been up to lately that are kind of weird. Among the bad feedback, one of the most resonating things that I'm hearing from many people is that many restaurants are closed, nightlife is weak, many of the hotels along the coast that they're familiar with no longer exist because so many restaurants and hotels are closed down because of the hurricane aftermath. It means that there really isn't a good vibe. People are complaining a lot about the water clarity. They go to a place called Clearwater. They expect clear water. After the hurricanes, we haven't had clear water. We've actually had pretty nasty water. We have dead sargassum on the beach. We got the seagrass dying. We've had cold snaps that have killed a lot of the vegetation. So there's a lot of not really appealing things happening in Florida right now. You could call these climate related or ecological related or weather or aftermath of hurricanes, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely still having a very negative impact on the way people that are coming here are perceiving the area. And for many people, it's enough for them not to consider coming back to Florida again. Now, people visiting Florida are a little bit more educated right now on some of the negative things that are happening, but other people are still completely misled and blinded to what's happening in Florida. So despite the fact we are having people come, the feedback from those people is more negative than ever before. I've literally had Uber passengers that are literally upset. Imagine you go somewhere on vacation and you go on a rant to your Uber driver about how things are closed, businesses are empty, the things that they wanted to do aren't open. Like, I'm literally getting this back to back. And if you're doing rideshare in Florida, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You literally get people that are coming down here and they're like, yo, where's the vibe? Where's the life? What's going on? Why are all these places closed down? Why is everything for lease? Why, you're getting people that are coming here and they're not enjoying their experience. And that right there is bad for the future of Florida's tourism, because those are people, when they go back home, and it's not going to be like, wow, I was in Florida on vacation. It's like, wow, I was in Florida for my vacation. And that means that when people start to come here and they don't have good experiences, it's going to eventually turn into people not coming to Florida or more people being discouraged from visiting the state. And as you guys know, tourism, what's left of tourism, is still the state's biggest industry. Although it's questionable, we have other big industries like new home construction, but they're in the crapper too. So it's hard to tell what Florida's leading industry is right now when every industry in the state's in the crapper. I think for me, the most shocking thing is people who are telling me, when I'm on rideshare for them, that they're buying in Florida, how great Florida is, how great Florida's economy is going. And you gotta be like, are you stupid? Look at this for rent sign here. Look at this for, like, literally, I had to do this to somebody, and I'm a very blunt person. And, like, I know I'm not there to drive and please people anymore or try to get tips off them. I just tell people things for how they are. Like, I had this person today, and I literally had to tell this person, are you stupid? Look, a for rent sign here, a for rent sign there. Count them. A for lease sign there. What makes you think that this is a good economy right now? Look at this place. Look around. Look at all these for rent. Oh, there is a lot of real estate available. It's a buyer's market. I'm like, no, it's not a buyer's market. It's a horrible time to buy. That's why people are ditching their properties. There's properties right now in Southwest Florida where the people that bought them owe $500,000 on these houses, and they're paying a mortgage of $4,600 a month. You can literally rent these houses now for $2,000 a month. I mean, it's a person that's renting is paying less than half than the person who owns it. If you know what that means, it's not a good mathematical equation. And that's the reality of how bad Florida's real estate market is right now. Yeah, you still got people coming over here thinking that this is a dream. And you know what? It's mostly people from Ohio. So I don't know if there's an advertisement campaign or I don't know what people are subscribing to in Ohio, but they seem to be the stupidest and most uneducated out of all the people that are coming to Florida right now. The New Jerseys and New York's figured it out. That's why they're not coming here anymore. But with the cost of insurance and it being as much as your mortgage for some individuals and then property taxes being so high, like, hello? But yes, it is season in Florida. Let's break this down. Every Floridian's favorite time of year, the snowbirds are back. Traffic congestion, the talk of every online forum for Florida. This is the time of year where things get busy. The 2026 tourist season has been one of the worst in many years, but about halfway through February, it finally picked up a little bit. So on today's video, I'm going to show you how bad traffic congestion has got, and of course give you guys some interesting stories about what we've been up to lately, and some stories about rideshare driving since season has started. The first story is just one of the weirdest I have had. Let's get started with this. The date is February the 14th, aka Valentine's Day. I haven't done rideshare in what feels like months. I simply haven't been in the mood to get out there and deal with people, but I finally went out for this holiday thinking that it would be a good day, and I actually did really well. I made a total of $150 in just 3 hours. And if you guys know, that's exceptionally well. It's actually the highest pay rate I've ever had for a single driving session that long. And if you're wondering how did we get to a figure that high, it was because the last passenger came with an exceptionally generous tip. We'll get to that part. My first passenger was going to the airport, and as you guys know, airport rides usually tend to pay really good. Combine that with it being a holiday, and we're off to a great start on February the 14th. Fortunate for me, I got another passenger at the airport, and that's always good because now you got 2 out of 3 rides for the night being in or out of the airport. Airport rides usually pay well. Now these were snowbirds who are just now coming back to Florida from up north. They're heading to a part of Lakewood Ranch where everything is under construction. Now granted, these people haven't been in Lakewood Ranch for months now. They were back up north, so things have changed quite a bit. And they were trying to give me directions that I should ignore the Uber app and try to enter their community the way they thought we should enter it. And it turned out that that entrance was actually closed. So because they looked kind of dumb by doing all that, they gave me a generous tip to make up for the fact that they wasted my time driving around parts of Lakewood Ranch that were inaccessible to their community. So eventually we found our way into their community. I dropped them off, and since I was in Lakewood Ranch, I decided to go home for a little bit and take a little break since it was early in the night. So after taking a break, I picked up a passenger in Lakewood Ranch that was going to downtown Sarasota. Now, this was a passenger that wanted to talk about religion, which is kind of a strange topic, especially being late at night on a Saturday, going to downtown. Interesting topic, interesting conversation. That's not one you get too often, but every once in a blue moon you do get that passenger. According to Uber policy, that is one conversation you're technically not allowed to have with your passengers, but I've had it more than once and it's never been a problem. But now I'm kind of scratching my head wondering, this is a Saturday night in Sarasota, a city of debauchery. I know there's something special waiting for me tonight. This can't really be my evening. Airport rides and people that are talking about religion is not exactly what you would expect on a Saturday night in Sarasota. But little did I know that Sarasota had a surprise for me. Now, this is the part of the video where you cover your kids' ears because I'm going to have to omit some details. Now, this happened last week and I still haven't published the video. And the reason is because I just kind of don't know how to go about this. I've had some strange experiences doing rideshare at night, but this one definitely tops the list. And this is my new craziest Uber story ever. Now, it's an older couple. They're about in their 50s. Like I said, you probably want to cover your kids' ears because I've thought extensively about the proper way of relating this story, because on our channel, we don't like to get vulgar. We don't like to get, I like to have a clean YouTube channel, and I've really strived for that. But I also report what happens to me when I ride share late at night. It's part of the reason why I do it. But there's really no clean or wholesome way to tell you guys this story. And if I omit the vocabulary, then the context is lost. So I'm going to do the best that I can, and I actually had to think about this because what happens next is definitely some of the wildest rideshare experiences I've ever had. And boy, have I had some weird ones. I really do not know the right vocabulary to do this. Like I said, I try to keep my channel clean and wholesome, but there's no other way to describe this. On top of that, when they got out, they gave me a very generous tip to try to make up for the inconvenience. And I do believe that when people give you a very generous tip to make up for something they did wrong, that you shouldn't put them on blast. So I'm not going to be able to show you guys where I picked them up or where I took them to, because I do believe that by giving me a very generous tip, the man tried to do the best he could to make this wrong situation right. So with further ado, let's get into the story. And you've been warned, it's a little graphic. I'm not going to say the name of the rideshare app we were on. Let's just keep it informal. I pick up a couple, a man and a woman in their 50s, in a very nice restaurant in downtown Sarasota. It was instantly evident that the woman was very inebriated and perhaps in heat. And my man, if this story ever gets back to you, I'm not saying your name, I'm not showing your face, I'm not showing the audio, I'm not showing where I picked you up or dropping you off. I am just sharing the story. You did the right thing by trying to make the situation right, but it's my job to tell the story. I'm not putting you on blast. People watching today are getting the story, but they're not seeing the names and pictures and all that. So while I did have body cam footage of this whole thing, I've decided that the prudent thing to do is to omit it from the internet, because I do believe that, as a rideshare driver, you gotta do people right and you can't do people wrong. In the case of these people, a couple in their 50s, going out to dinner for St. Valentine's Day at a nice restaurant, driving back to a gated community somewhere in Lakewood Ranch, I don't think this is the way these people act on a regular basis. At least I would hope so. And that is why I'm not sharing in full detail today's story, because not only the nature of the story, but also because I really believe that these individuals' behavior was a direct result of not handling what they drank. And this is not the way these people behave on a normal basis. Now, one determination that I always make while determining if I'm going to publish a video or not is deciding whether this person does this on a regular basis or if it was just a result of the drinking, because at the end of the day, if you're in an Uber because you're drinking, that's the right thing to do. And if an Uber driver gets a passenger like this because the passenger's been drinking, then they're still doing the right thing by getting into an Uber in some way or another. I guess the morality here is I'm going to tell you guys the story, but you're not going to know who it's about. It could have been anybody on Lakewood Ranch because that's all you know. So that's the way I feel. I have to tell you this story, but I can't put these people on blast because I honestly believe that this is not the way they behave normally. So I'm driving these people home and I instantly realize that the female is severely impaired and she's also in heat. And it is St. Valentine's Day, so you have to be a little bit tolerable to people. I mean, obviously, if you're Uber driving late at night on St. Valentine's Day, you're going to get some kissing in the back seat or whatnot. It's part of the package. Now, most of the time as an Uber driver, you probably won't allow that. But again, it is February the 14th, and this is kind of what people do on this holiday. So you kind of know what you're getting yourself into by being out here late at night on this particular day. Let me elaborate with you guys a little bit that Sarasota is a city of pure debauchery. It's not quite Las Vegas or Nashville, but a thing or two has been known to happen in Sarasota. For a middle-sized city, it's pretty freaking weird. I've literally interviewed people for my YouTube channel that I've met on rideshare who are literally in a human trafficking type of situation. I've had hookers in the back seat. I've had propositions of all sorts from all angles. It's a city of debauchery, and so there's no surprises there. Sarasota is a weird place. But I think what makes this story interesting is that it clearly didn't seem like this was these people's regular routine. It just seemed like this woman had way too much to drink. She was literally passing out. And in her last desperate words and heat, she propositioned her husband in a way that I have never experienced as a rideshare driver. Now keep in mind that the husband is somewhat sober and that these look like decent white folks. I'm talking about, dress shirt, freaking dress shoes, a nice white couple in their 50s going home to their nice suburban home in Lakewood Ranch. This isn't exactly the typical person that you see in their debauchery in Sarasota. I mean, kids, if you're watching today's video, this could literally be your parents in Lakewood Ranch. I'm dead serious. So let's get to the story. I'm kind of beating around the bush because I really can't get the words out of my mouth. But the female passenger propositioned her husband in the back seat of my Uber, live in full effect, backdoor action. I wish I could repeat to you exactly what she said. I just can't let these words come out of my mouth. But frankly, let's just stop beating around the bush. The woman in the back seat propositioned her husband some backdoor action in the back seat of my Uber. And she said it wouldn't even hurt because after all, he's just a teeny little guy. When these words came out of her mouth, I looked at him. And I could tell he was sober enough to realize how bad of a spot they were in. And I understood that he understood that I understood that this was not about to happen in the backseat of my car. And frankly, he didn't seem too pleased with how inebriated his fellow wife was. So in a split second, without any hesitation, I said the following words. Ma'am, this is an Uber. This is not a hotel. You're not home yet. You're in the back seat of an Uber, and I'm not going to allow this behavior that you would like to engage in. Now, when you guys get home, you can do whatever type of thing y'all want to, okay? But in the back seat of my car, there will be no poking around. Now, granted that this woman didn't just make the suggestion that we should do this, she had stood up. It's a pickup truck, by the way. It's a big pickup truck. She stood up and had been trying to work her pants off in preparation for backdoor action, which is just kind of, wow, that's just kind of, that's a lot there for an Uber ride. She kind of just walked to fifth base there. There was no kissing or hugging or just... She skipped a few bases and went back to home plate pretty quick there. I didn't know that was even possible, that you could just skip all those steps. She wanted to go right into that. And he's trying to tell her, he's like, baby, like, we got to get home. And I'm like, this is an Uber. You can't do this. And I was really glad that the husband was also sober enough to realize that this was not happening in the backseat of an Uber. Eventually, she passed out on his lap, and I just played music as loud as I could and focused solely on driving. I normally do not allow any other type of activity of that nature in the car either, but it seemed like it was basically, if I tried stopping it, and I can't have the whole thing happen back there, but she went to sleep on his lap, and I have no idea what really happened back there. I normally would kick these people out, but then again, I'm dealing with a white couple in their 50s, leaving a nice restaurant, going back to Lakewood Ranch. If this was like some people in the hood, and this is just how they got down, it would be an instantly, you're getting kicked out of my vehicle. But then I also thought that kicking them out of the vehicle with her level of inebriation, there was one sober passenger who was also trying to work with me to prevent this from happening. And then there was also the fact that if I did kick them out, it could be a problem kicking them out. I was on Fruitville Road at this point. If you know Fruitville Road, there's not anywhere convenient to drop somebody off late at night. And it just seemed like the best thing I could do to de-escalate the situation was actually just to continue driving. Now, under different circumstances, these people would have got kicked out instantly. But I said once again that I really felt that this was not within their normal nature. It was a complete effect of the inebriation. And I just made the wise decision that despite the obnoxious behavior, that these were just people who probably didn't drink this much and are probably going to have a horrible story to remember. And I did them the good deed of not even mentioning which restaurant I picked them up at. So we finally arrived to a gated community in Lakewood Ranch, and the female passenger is passed the crap out. She's not just passed out, her shoes are in different places, her cell phone was underneath the front seat somehow. It's not uncommon for Uber passengers to pass out on your way to your destination, but she wasn't just passed out, she was out cold. And then when we tried waking her up, well, she thought that the party was on again with me and him, and it was quite uncomfortable removing her from the vehicle. Now, at this point, the guy pulls out a $50 bill, hands it to me. His face is red like a tomato. I'm looking at his neighborhood. It's clearly a nice gated community. Like, this is not how these people get down on a regular basis. So I said to him, look, just be patient. He's trying to, pull her out of the car by her legs. She's only got one shoe on at this point. Now, she's angry at this point and once again reminding him of his little man syndrome. I'm not gonna lie, it took a good 5 minutes to get this woman out of this car, and the man was just looking around saying stuff like, I hope my neighbors don't see this, which once again reinforced my decision not to kick them out of the Uber, because I really do believe that this is not the way these people regularly get down. Now again, Sarasota is a place of debauchery, but these people were only debauched for one night, and I'm pretty sure they've learned their dang lesson. But eventually I did have to help this man extract his wife from the back seat of the car and find all her belongings. She decided to kind of lean on my truck and tried to vomit on the outside of the truck, which I had to remind her, okay, now, if you vomit on the back of my truck and you're already out of the truck, now you have definitely crossed the line again. Finally, we both yanked the woman off of our truck. I handed them the shoes and cell phones and whatever else she had left in the back seat of the car, including her sweater and part of her clothing and attire there. And as they walked away and into their house, the guy looked at me one last time and said, Jose, please don't publish this on your YouTube channel. And I kind of just, thank you for the $50 bill. I got a great story to tell. And yes, as an Uber driver, you do get to see a side of individual people in society that perhaps they themselves may never even know existed. But at the end of the day, this is one of the interesting things about Uber driving, is that you can find yourself in some of the most bizarre situations ever. I'm pretty sure I was not supposed to say what rideshare platform this happened on, but I couldn't remember if I told you. Now, the audio alone of me and this guy trying to yank this woman out of the backseat of the car while she thinks we're having our way with her when we weren't it's good material. But you know what? A $50 tip makes up for it. And I ended up making $150 in 3 hours just for letting people use the backseat of my car as a Motel 6. And the crazy thing about this story is that these individuals may have been so messed up that I may be the only one to ever remember that story. So I recently decided to put my GoPro on a fishing pole and throw it in the water to see if I could see what is in the water with my GoPro attached to a fishing pole. And the water clarity really hasn't been that great lately, which means that the footage that I've been capturing has been absolute garbage. I don't know if you know this, but every time you go fishing, you have about 50 people walk up to you and say, "So, what you catching? Have you caught anything today? Or what are you using for a lure?" And when they see that my lure is a GoPro camera that I'm throwing out into the middle of the ocean, I get really interesting responses like, "Have you lost your mind? Or isn't that camera worth about $500? I saw a viral video where a young man throws his GoPro off a bridge in Sarasota. It lands in the water, and all of a sudden there's thousands of fish flocking to see his camera, and it's gone viral. So I figured I could duplicate this. Well, it turns out that I can't. So I spent the better part of the last 2 days throwing my GoPro camera off of different bridges, hoping to catch a viral moment of my camera landing over an alligator or something. I don't know what I was trying to capture, but let me just remind you guys that it didn't really work out that way. But I did kind of spend the last 2 days driving around to different bridges in absolutely crushing season traffic, trying to capture whatever I thought was in the water, apparently leaves. So despite the fact that we are kind of in full bloom of snowbird season, there's days where you go to the beach and there's plenty of parking available. There's days where you go to places that should be popping and they look completely dead. And there's other days where you're stuck in midday traffic and it really does feel like season. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that season is kind of here, but it's been very sporadic. Like for example, this is Siesta Key this week. You can see that there's nobody in front of me for maybe a whole entire mile. So it's been kind of a weird season. At moments it feels like season, and at other moments it feels completely dead. It's definitely been the strangest snowbird season that I've ever seen, and it's definitely off to a very late start. I mean, look at this little section right here of Siesta Key. It literally looks like a ghost town. Now, you could go back during rush hour and it might feel like the end of the world of the busiest snowbird season ever, but everybody just kind of does the same things at the same time, which means at one moment in the day it could be completely empty like this, and you come back a few hours later and it could be crushingly packed. Now, as far as Siesta Key goes, there are some people out and about. Like I've said, this has been the worst snowbird season we've ever had, and some parts of Siesta Key look desolate. On this particular day, it was a weekday, and it really felt desolate, and it didn't really feel like season. It was a little bit cold, so that could have played a little bit of a factor, but at the end of the day, the colder it is in Florida, the colder it should be somewhere else. So it's definitely been a weird season. I would say that the tourist areas like Siesta Key, as you can tell, are very empty, but the commuter routes are very busy. I've noticed more of these white vans than ever this year. I know for a fact most of them are going to be rentals, so snowbirds are coming down here, but it's nothing like before. And for being this part of the year, this is about as empty as you're ever going to see Siesta Key. So if you're out and about on US 41 or Fruitville Road or something in the middle of the day, it might be a complete nightmare. But like I said, for being along the islands, it's definitely very empty. Siesta Key, for example, is definitely slower than usual. Now, Longboat Key and St. Armand Circle at times can be very busy, but I think it's not so much the volume of people that are on the island, but the fact that for some reason everybody tries to leave the island at the same exact time, and it creates an absolute traffic nightmare. So there's a restaurant here in this building that's white and blue. It's called the Domer Duo. The owner is a Polish guy. I had him as an Uber passenger once, and he was the most generous tipper I've ever had. There is the restaurant right there, the Duo, and his food is incredible. He probably has the best burger in Sarasota, but I did have him as an Uber passenger one night, and he gave me $100 tip, making him the most generous Uber tipper I've ever had and the only person to ever give me $100. So anytime I get to shout out, any chance I get to shout out his business on my channel, I definitely will. I don't think he did it for that purpose, but dang it, he deserves it. His food is great, and it seems like he runs the whole restaurant by himself most of the time, so definitely a hard-working guy, and probably the best burger in Sarasota that I've had so far. Now, this is Clearwater Beach. Notice how literally every single parking space is available. I think along the coast of Pinellas County, they're having a brutal season. St. Petersburg Beach as well. This whole Pinellas County coastline has had a really bad time. I think that the hurricane aftermath has been more than they can handle up there. They certainly have not been able to make a speedy recovery in any way at all. I did a Clearwater Beach video recently, and this whole entire coastline is in bad shape when it comes to tourism. This is what it's like driving into Clearwater Beach from the south. It definitely feels more lonesome and empty than ever. And I think along the west coast of Florida, probably Pinellas County coastline has it the worst right now. The amount of hurricane destruction that they had was insane. A lot of businesses haven't opened. A lot of small restaurants are still destroyed. A lot of small hotels are still destroyed. And the real estate market here is an absolute exodus. Everybody's trying to sell everything. The situation along the coast of Pinellas County is bad. A lot of people bought in Pinellas County because they haven't had a hurricane in over 100 years. So about a year ago, 2 hurricanes affected this area within like a 1 week or 2 of each other. So that was definitely more than a lot of people could handle. And the real estate market is reflecting a huge exodus. Inventory is flooding the market, and things here are not looking good. Few tourists have shown up to this area as well this year. It doesn't seem like Pinellas County is going to have a good season at all. So today on February the 20th, I went back out there again trying to put my camera in the water. My first swing, I actually smashed my camera against the aluminum. And once the camera got in the water, really there wasn't much to be seen. Now this is on Bird Key, right in front of downtown Sarasota. Despite the fact that yesterday I spent the entire day trying to see what the crap was in the water with literally no success, I went back for another run and, well, nothing at all. I hope that once the water clarity gets a little bit better, I'll be able to get better videos of this nature. The problem is that, as you can see, the water clarity has been absolutely horrible. It's just been too windy. We've had too many cold fronts, and the water really looks like crap right now. I literally put my GoPro at the end of a fishing line and smashed it against an aluminum boat dock. No wonder people were looking at me like if I was crazy. So I did the reasonable thing, and I stopped trying to put my GoPro at the end of a fishing line. I replaced it with a fishing lure, and I decided to go fishing. Now, I haven't really gone fishing in a while. In fact, for some reason that I don't understand, I decided to go fishing today. I look at the website, and just today, my fishing license expired. Now, keep in mind that I only go fishing like a few times a year now, which is really sad because when I lived in Naples, I probably went fishing 5 times a week. In other words, I'm becoming an old grouch just like the rest of you guys watching today's video. I used to be the type of person that would be on the beach 5 days a week. Now I might go 5 days in a year. Man, we get old quick. Katie actually told me to take the day off today and just go fishing because I needed to just kind of unwind my head a little. I'm kind of in a content gap where I just can't come up with good ideas. And Katie was just like, you just need to go fishing and just kind of refresh yourself. So I went to South Lido Key and I went fishing for a little bit. And I really got a chance to just kind of refresh my brain and kind of reset myself because it's been kind of a little crazy little bit here. And going fishing really brought back some good memories, and I was able to just kind of disconnect my brain from all the problems we face in life. At the end of the day, you can see I'm using a very heavy fishing pole. This is the type of fishing pole you could practically almost catch a shark with. So the idea is if I hook into a very large fish, I'll be able to handle it. Now that right there will make you need to replace your shoulder pretty quick. And again, I haven't gone fishing in a while, so I think once in a while wouldn't hurt. But definitely that fishing pole for that lure and setup is overkill unless you hook into that monster tarpon. Of course, most guys fishing aren't going to go through the extra work of using just a heavy-duty reel for casting out this often. But I did it anyways, and well, I kind of removed the stupid idea of trying to put my GoPro at the end of the line to see what was in the water. But after fishing for a while and not catching anything, I decided that maybe I could give the old GoPro another try. So this time I decided to leave the camera where I could see the flotation device, which is really a stabilizer, because I'm trying to have an idea of where the camera is in the water. And that is because like the first 30 shots that I did this with, I couldn't even tell where the camera was looking. Was it looking down? Is it looking up? Is it looking straight ahead? Obviously you're throwing a GoPro on a fishing line, so there's no telling what's going on. So here, by leaving the flotation device within shot of the camera, I could have a better perspective of exactly what direction we're moving in, where the camera is looking at. And I think this may be a project better fitted for freshwater. I mean, this is out in the open pass, the water's rushing out, the waves are crashing over you. There's just so much going on here that this is really a difficult thing. Now, if the water were to be perfectly clear and I could be able to fix the angle perfectly, I guess a shot of, the camera going down the middle of the pass would be an incredible shot. But realistically, this is what it actually looks like. And again, with clear water quality, we may be able to get a better video in the future. I'll try this again when the water isn't so murky and, well, when it isn't so windy. And just every single factor that would work against this project has gone against it. But believe it or not, I have spent the last 2 days throwing a GoPro into the water. It's been a waste of time, and I'm surprised my GoPro is still here. So after spending practically most of the day on South Lido, I couldn't catch any fish with my fishing poles. I couldn't get any good scenery with the GoPro going into the water, and I metal detected and only found one bottle cap. In other words, I did 3 different things while I was here on Lido. I literally went fishing, caught nothing, tried to throw the camera in the water, got 0 good footage, and I also metal detected and found nothing. Despite the fact it didn't really seem like I accomplished any of the things I set out to do today, it really felt great just to see the water and be out there in nature, even though it was more windy than I would have liked. So you can pretty much say that today was one of those days where I was out and about the entire day and practically accomplished nothing, but it actually felt good not to have to worry about anything, just to take a day to myself to enjoy being in Sarasota without having to worry about working or anything of that sort. Now, on the way out, I did turn on the Uber app because, as you guys know, traffic is unbearable, and you guys are going to get to see that here in a minute. So I figured, you know what, let me turn on the Uber app, and there may be somebody leaving the island going to downtown Sarasota, which is the exact route that I have to take. And sure enough, by the time I got in my car, that's exactly what happened. As I was trying to get back in my car, these young kids that were sitting in a car smoking earlier in the day were still in their car, and they asked me if they could borrow a cigarette. And I said, look, man, I don't smoke. And then they asked me if I could jump their vehicle because the battery was dead. I'm like, look, man, no speak English, papi. But it's kind of sad how somebody would just sit there in a car all day smoking and try to panhandle at people as they try to leave the beach. It's just really crappy, really. And I thought to myself how crappy Florida gets when the snowbirds get down. It used to be that only rich people would snowbird, But it seems like recently you actually get a lot of pretty like low scummy people that come to Florida snowbird and end up smoking in a beach parking lot all day and panhandling. You do get a lot of people like that where like, well, they're homeless, so they decide to come to Florida with their only possession, their car, and then sit there and smoke on a beach and panhandle all day. You get a lot of people like that here. It's just kind of scummy people that snowbird, but they're not really like, it's like homeless snowbirds. They're really scummy. We get them every single year. So I'm picking up somebody at the Ritz Carlton. This is the beach club, I guess. I would assume that if I'm picking up somebody at this Ritz Carlton and taking them back to the other Ritz Carlton, that they would at least give you a tip. But when I saw that they were very young people, I already knew that I wasn't going to get a tip. And interestingly enough, I think I ran into these kids earlier in the day. So they were at the beach club and they were walking along the beach as I was fishing. And I was really weird that I would run back into them later on in the day. So when I was fishing, I saw them, and now here they are getting into my Uber. So that was kind of weird. But I realized, young kids almost never tip. And here's another one of those white Pacifica vans again, or Chrysler vans, whatever the crap they are. But anyways, picking up people at the Ritz Carlton. Notice a white Bentley. Now, I got a little irritated at these people because they were trying to tell me which way I should go. I got the GoPro on. I really wanted to get footage of St. Armand's Circle looking busy for you guys. And I don't really Uber drive for the sake of the Uber passengers or the money in Uber. I do it because I'm getting a little bit of money out of it, not a lot, but mostly I do it just for content. So having the person in the back seat tell me not to go through St. Armand's Circle because they were in a rush, I almost considered kicking them out of the Uber because I was more interested in capturing the footage of a busy St. Armand's Circle for my YouTube videos than I care about them telling me where I should drive or not. Now, as an Uber driver, I've learned never to judge people, but when you're picking up very young people at very rich areas, you are almost guaranteed not to get a tip. These are like kids whose parents are paying for everything. They have no appreciation of what a regular working class person goes through. So, as expected, they didn't tip, and I'm not surprised. And like I said, as an Uber driver, I've learned not to judge book by their covers, but I almost can assure you that if you get young rich people doing young rich people things, they're never going to tip you. So I actually started playing my own Spanish music, completely ignoring them. I'm like, you know what, they're not even there. So I actually got, right about here, I remember, I'm like, you know what, dude, these people, they're not going to tip me. I'm only getting paid $7 for this ride. And on top of that, they're making demands. So I'm just like, you know what, not too interested in this ride. Either way, going the back route around the circle, we still got caught in some horrible traffic on the back street, so it probably made little to no difference trying to avoid St. Armand's Circle, which just irritated me more. So at this point, I'm listening to like Mexican music, probably to irritate them. And I know that's probably not what you want to do as an Uber driver, but I'm at the point where like, if I just notice that this is not the passenger that I want, and I'm almost certain that they're not going to tip, I really don't care anymore. And I used to be like, try to be a crowd pleaser with every passenger, but you just got to recognize that there's a type of passenger that literally is never going to tip you. And this passenger back here kind of fit that description. So I really didn't care. On top of that, like literally telling me where to go kind of irritated me. So anyways, this is the reality of St. Armand's Circle. Everybody trying to leave the island at the same exact time. You're literally just slowly crawling 10 feet at a time. It definitely gets aggravating. And this is why people might think that we're having a great tourist season, but it's not really the volume of people that are at these places. It's just the fact that everybody tries to do the same exact thing at the same exact time. And there are more snowbirds than regular people in some of these places like the island. So yeah, it definitely creates an absolute traffic bottleneck. So this is what St. Armand's Circle looks like this time of year. It's bumper to bumper. Does that mean that we're having a great tourist season? Probably not. It's just a lot of congestion because, again, everybody does the same exact thing at the same exact time. Now, I was literally wanting to get off the island around 4 p.m., but I looked at the map and the whole thing was red. So I thought, if I wait till 6 or 7 p.m., certainly by then there won't be any traffic. Boy, was I wrong. It was like from 4 all the way to like 7, just bumper to bumper, trying to get off the island, not on, just off. If you're coming the other way, it's a pretty good shot. But you think if you're on Lido Key, St. Armands, or Longboat Key, there's only one way into Sarasota. There should probably be like 3 bridges here, but there's only one. You could go north through Longboat Key, and off the north end, you can go into Bradenton, but there's actually more traffic going into Bradenton than there is in Sarasota, to the point I actually was trying to go into Bradenton where I live, but it's actually quicker to go through Sarasota than through Bradenton. So that should just give you an idea how bad it is. There need to be more bridges out here, and this is really kind of an infrastructure issue. And I would say that this is literally every single year, every single day. So this is kind of what you expect during season. So normally during the off season, you can just fly through here in 3 to 4 minutes. And it's actually a beautiful and quite enjoyable drive. This is one of my favorite drives in Florida. This drive between downtown Sarasota and Lido Key, I absolutely love it. But on a day like this with aggravating traffic, it can definitely be a bit much. Eventually, we actually struck up a conversation with the passengers in the back seat. Apparently, they've lived all over the country, and we're just talking about different cities that they've lived in, and learning from their experiences, asking them what are the best cities you've lived in, what did you hate about living in this city, what did you like about living in this city. So, obviously, most of my rideshare passengers are going to live in other parts of the country. And I like to be up to date. These particular people at some point lived in San Francisco, so they were telling me about their experiences living in San Francisco and a bunch of other U.S. cities. So what I really enjoy about doing rideshare is that most of the time, if I'm lucky, I'm going to get somebody who does not live in Florida. They live somewhere else. And basically, I just interrogate them about what it's like to live in those cities. What do you like about this city? What don't you like about this city? And, it gives me a completely different perspective on all these cities. Like today I had somebody from St. Louis. Usually my experiences of St. Louis were completely different from this person's perspective of what life in St. Louis is like. So the same thing can be San Francisco. I got my perspective of San Francisco. They got their perspective. I get a lot of people from Cincinnati, Ohio right now. And that's the other thing. Like I'm getting a lot of people who are coming down here for business, to buy real estate for different reasons. So it really gives me an incredible perspective to do the rideshare, to the point where I'm not doing it for the money of rideshare. I'm almost doing it just for the experience of meeting people and learning about where they're from and what they think about where they're from, and comparing it to where we live here in Florida. So I think that rideshare is a really neat way to get to meet people and to learn about other cities. Recently, I think the biggest trend down here with people coming here is Toronto. So we do have direct flights to Toronto. So almost on a daily basis, I get somebody from Toronto on rideshare if I go out there, and I go into the touristy areas. Then you also have a lot of people from Ohio, Columbus, Cincinnati. I'm really shocked that so many people from Ohio are considering moving to Florida, and how mistaken they are about the reality of Florida. I mean, the people that are moving here from Ohio now, what they think is happening in Florida or is about to happen in Florida, a lot of them are bringing their money down here, and they're all failing, by the way. They just opened a Skyline Chili's everywhere here. They're not doing too good. Indies from Louisville, Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky, which is right across from Ohio, they opened up in Clearwater, and it doesn't look like they're doing too well. And I've heard of a few other restaurants from that area where they come down here from Ohio and think that they're just going to prosper down here, and it's not the case. But doing rideshare really is eye-opening in that I'm able to see who's coming to Florida, what they think of Florida, and what they think about wherever they're from back home. All right, so keep in mind it's a Friday night. We're dropping these people off at the Ritz Carlton. Notice how there's cars parked all the way across the front. And if you look on the left, you can see a few very exclusive cars over there. I think there's a convertible Rolls-Royce. So you can see that there's a lot of vehicles parked here. So this is a very busy night at the Ritz Carlton in Sarasota. This is the way it should look in season. As I pull up to the Ritz Carlton, the valet guy actually thought, my dog is scoffing in the background, but the valet guy actually thought that he was going to take my truck away. I had to explain to him that I'm just a rideshare driver. Check out the cars that are parked directly in front of us at the Ritz Carlton. You're talking Range Rovers, Rolls Royces, BMWs, Lamborghinis. That's what you get up here. Alright, so I called Katie real quick and asked her what she wanted for dinner, what we're going to do. And she wanted me to pick up some food that's Venezuelan, so I thought it was a great idea as well. So we're going to drive to Bradenton to get some Venezuelan food. A ride came in, somebody going from the Sarasota airport to Bradenton. So once again, I'm already on this route, and I think this is the way I use rideshare. I don't think too many people use rideshare the way I use it. A lot of people do it like as a gig or a full-time job. Like, I use it as actual rideshare in the sense that, like, for example, I'm in Sarasota's downtown. I'm heading towards downtown Bradenton to get Venezuelan food over there before I go home. There's a ride going from the airport to Bradenton. It's right along my route. It pays like $11. Hopefully they tip me and I get a little extra more. And that's kind of the way I use rideshare as what it's meant to be, which is rideshare. Like, if I'm going to point A to point B and somebody along that route needs a ride, then they pay me a little bit for it. Like, that's the way I actually use rideshare as actual rideshare. And it confuses a lot of people when I say, oh, I do Uber here or there, I do rideshare. A lot of times it confuses the crap out of people because they think you're doing it as a gig. And I don't do it as a gig. I do it as an actual rideshare thing. Like, if I'm in Bradenton, I'm going to Sarasota, and I can pick up a ride along the way there, that's rideshare. And that's kind of what it was meant for, and that's how I use it. But somehow it confuses people. So now we're on US 41. Behind us is downtown Sarasota. We're heading towards the airport. And there is considerable traffic on US 41, on top of the fact that there is road construction, which I have no idea why they started this road construction during the season time. And yes, my dog is playing with a toy in the background. I am way too tired to stop it, so it's going to happen during the video. This is the Sarasota Uber lot. This whole section of the airport was recently opened just for rideshare, and they purposely made it really tight to pull in here because they don't want large vehicles to come in here. But my truck is actually pretty freaking large, so it's a little difficult pulling in here. This is kind of confusing because many people come to the airport and they think they're getting picked up at the terminal. Why is my dog... What are you doing, bro? Nothing like a dog vomiting in the background while you're trying to record a YouTube video. But yes, this is the new Uber lot, and it's a little confusing for a lot of people who simply don't understand that they have to come to the Uber lot. They wait for you at the terminal. It's kind of confusing. So I pull up here, and somewhere is the person I'm looking for. And honestly, it was kind of confusing because it was supposed to be a male, but I ended up getting a female. Who knows? Alright, so they're going to Bradenton, and I'm going to Bradenton, so yes, it made a lot of sense. And what was crazy is that these people were from Ohio, and they were in Florida to invest in real estate. They're buying condos as investments. I literally just had to tell this person, have you lost your mind? You're buying condos in Bradenton as an investment? And she was just telling me about how great of an investment she's about to make. And I'm like, ma'am, you have lost your mind. You're buying... I'm like, first of all, a condo is literally the worst thing you could buy other than a mobile home. I think if you're going to talk about the worst things you could buy in Florida, mobile home would be the worst. Condo would be the second worst. And in Bradenton with these huge HOAs fees. And I'm like, have you lost your mind? Like, I literally tried to convince this person, like, just to reconsider what she's about to do because it made no sense. Notice Doña Betty on the right. They look packed and busy. It is a Friday night, so a lot of people get tacos there. So this is another reason why I love rideshare. I literally have somebody from Ohio who's in Bradenton to buy real estate who thinks it's a good investment. And in the back of my mind, knowing everything I know about this area, I'm just like, have you lost your mind? But this is why I like doing rideshare, because it gives me the opportunity to see different people and hear my dog growling at a toy. So I drop off these people in Bradenton, and then I head to, wow, my dog's really going hard on that little toy. So before I go get my Venezuelan burgers, I actually stopped at this little Cuban food truck hoping that they had my guava juice, which I absolutely love. Now these guys are on 44th and US 41 roughly. It's called My Cuban. You can see that they are right by the ice cream place, and they put up these signs saying Cuban food. I just wanted to see if they had my favorite guava drink. We had already ordered our food from the Venezuelan place, but I wanted to get some natural juices, and this guy here has the ones I like. Unfortunately, on this particular day, he was already sold out. He seemed to be pretty busy, so shout outs to My Cuban with a K. They're there, and I definitely recommend them if you're in Bradenton for Cuban food. They're open late on the weekends. So when I pulled up to get my natural fruit juice, it was actually on the house. So I had helped him a little bit with social media. We had talked a little bit. I don't know what happened, but he remembered me, and he was just happy to see me. And he actually didn't let me pay for whatever I got. So I just left it as a tip for the people working instead. But at the end of the day, My Cuban, definitely check them out for good Cuban food in Bradenton. Like I said, he literally was like, this is on the house. And you know what, looking back now, I should have just accepted hospitality. This is a problem I'm having with lately. Like, I help so many people get their businesses off the ground. And if you're watching my channel lately, I'm working with a lot of other people in the community. And sometimes I've always been a helper and a provider. And now it's time for me to just sit back and accept hospitality from other people. But I have to be more humble. I'm working on being more humble because I feel like many times people do stuff to thank me for what I'm doing for them, and then I feel like I'm obligated. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I definitely need to be a little bit more humble and accept hospitality from people when they provide it. Like here, he was like, "It's on the house." You know, I should have just said thank you so much, but instead I had to be a fool and try to tip the person that was working there. I got to work on that, you know, because a lot of people do show me love, but then I always feel like I'm not much of a taker. I'm more of a giver, so it's just a personal boundary that I need to work on being more humble. So the place where we got dinner tonight is called Botalon Grill. It's a Venezuelan place, and it's kind of, we're on 44th now. We're turning north on US 41. So this is kind of like in the central part of Bradenton. And it's a little food truck park, and it's Botalon Grill, and they're a Venezuelan food truck. And what I got for me was a Venezuelan burger that has corn on it. I absolutely love it. And then Katie got like a meal, which is like, I think it's called like a plate where you get like chicken, a little bit of barbecue, and like some vegetables and stuff. So that's what Katie got. Now that it's season, maybe there's a little bit more money moving again. You're starting to see more people at the food trucks. For a while, especially with the whole immigration thing, everything's just kind of shut down. But I feel like maybe the Cuban and Venezuelan places that are still open are maybe swallowing up the customers from all the other places that closed down, maybe. I'm not sure. But it's definitely been really difficult, like within Bradenton, for example, a city that has so many immigrants, to see how bad things are in the hood, how many businesses have closed, how many businesses don't have a lot of customers. But I think on this day, the Cuban place was packed and the Venezuelan place was packed. So I think what's happening now is probably that like the legal Spanish businesses that are left are taking in all the customers from all the other places that closed. And please believe a lot of places closed. Like this food truck park was so busy and so packed. It's probably at 50% capacity versus what it was before this whole immigration thing happened. But even now, you can see that probably half the trucks are gone, or they're closing earlier, or they have a limited schedule. So without a doubt, all these immigration changes have really hit the Latin communities. And a lot of people who are legal even are just afraid to go out because we're starting to see profiling. If you saw my last body cam that I pulled, the guy was actually legal, and the cops were like upset that they couldn't deport him because they were trying to get him deported. So that was kind of really weird to see that. That was down in Charlotte County, but basically like the person they pulled over was legal, and the cops were upset that they couldn't deport the person. So that's kind of the environment you're in right now. So yes, it is season time in Florida, and the roads are packed and busy. But that doesn't mean that everything in Florida right now is going in the right direction. You're starting to see new businesses open where businesses had closed. You're starting to see a lot of people start businesses without employees. there's people out there trying to take advantage of, the deflation that's happened within businesses where there's less saturation now. So many people have left the country, so many businesses have closed. Rents are cheaper for commercial real estate because there's so much of it available. So there are people trying to take advantage of those things, but when they open up a business, they don't have customers. So I'm noticing that a lot of people are investing. I'm just questioning how smart those investments are, considering how bad the economy is currently. And I do believe that this season will be probably coming to a quicker end that you can imagine. Some people are still blind to what's happening in Florida, while other people are starting to see it already.